Hi, everyone. Right now in the United States, there's a movement to remove controversial statues and monuments. Most of those are Confederate statues, Confederate monuments uh, representing the Confederate States of America, the troops, and the people that were influential in that movement. What I want to urge is that we take a second to discuss what statues need to be removed and which ones don't. I don't think all of them across the board need to just be removed because they're Confederate. Now, I'm not saying that slavery or the oppression of anyone is okay by any means, but I want there to be a little bit of dialogue, and I'm arguing that there isn't dialogue in discussing exactly what statues need to be removed. That there's just a blanket call that if it's Confederate related, that it needs to be removed. And I don't think that's right. I think statues and the people and acts that they represent need to be discussed and debated before they're just removed. Now, some statues, some people, like Jefferson Davis, who is the president of the Confederate States of America, I would say that he maybe, probably, actually doesn't have any redeeming uh, facts, redeeming acts, I should say, in his political career. But others, like possibly Robert E. Lee, maybe does. He was the superintendent of West Point for a time, and maybe military career needs to be remembered, but not his political career. So I just want to make sure that we're not jumping to a knee jerk reaction of a small group of Americans that we need to remove and erase this part of history. Um, Gracie Olmstead of the Federalist says that we should also consider which parts of our history we are most proud of and most eager to uphold. Believe in preserving and carrying on the best of the past, not the worst. And I think that's what we need to look at is what these individuals represented, what they stood for, and what the statues and monuments stand for individually. Mr. Tobin of the New York Post writes that a generation ago, no one would have thought Washington or Jefferson controversial. Now it appears that even Mount Rushmore isn't safe. And I think that's the direction that we're headed, is that we're just making blanket statements that someone is bad or good based solely on small acts within their life. Washington, Jefferson, they were founders of our nation. They are not horrible people. They may have held unpopular beliefs. They were slaveholders, and that I think is wrong. And I'm not arguing that issue, but should we erase them from history for a few, maybe one bad act? Or should we choose to erase from history those horrible acts and leave the good? Um, Gersh Kuntzman of the New York Daily News writes that monuments are never about history itself. They merely represent what the people putting up the monument thinks about history at the moment that the monument is being installed. That's why there were once so many statues of Lenin in the Soviet Union, yet so few now. Every generation gets to write history the way it wants, and every next generation gets to rewrite it. I want to urge, I should say, that we understand why the generation previous to us wrote history the way they did, why they left it the way they did, or why they changed it the way they did before our generation chooses to rewrite it. Should we remember everything? Should we cut out the bad and only remember the good? Should we erase those blocks of history completely because there was some bad, not all bad? And that's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm urging, is that we take a second and we don't make a blanket statement for everything in every statue, every monument, that we look at these individually. Back in 1865, the New York Times wrote an article titled, "Shall the Rebel Barbarities Be Remembered or Forgotten?" And the whole summary of that argument is about whether we should destroy statues or leave them to remember why the Union fought the Confederacy. Thank you. That's all I got.